The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you led the cat up to the top of the building and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like over-capitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well-organized and well-funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
Echoes carried on the wind. We stepped into a moment where a nation would begin. Powder smoke and rising banners, voices ringing through the flame. We rode the currents of tomorrow, found the dawn of freedom's flame. Raise the flame of revolution, let the old world hear us roar. Freedom rides on every heartbeat, marching louder than before. From the Delaware to glory, soft disclosure fans the flame.
Oh, got to do that. Good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. Yeah, I was letting that play out, man. Joined this morning by the Alpha Warrior. How you doing, brother?
Good, man.
That's it? Just good?
You know what? Great. I'm doing great. It's June 30th, 2026. We are well past the halfway mark of this year, and we're getting into, the area that I've been describing as the fatal funnel choke point. So I'm fired up, man.
Yeah, I was talking about that. I've been talking about that over the last couple days now that, the momentum has significantly shifted this week alone over the last few days with the project oversight, with the Fauci diaries. Not so much the hearing yesterday, but what's that?
Ouchie Fauci.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the fallout from that today because we did not get to talk about it yesterday because, we had things going on. We were live when it was going on, and I was not too curious about sitting there watching him plead the Fifth Amendment over and over and over again. But of course, we got some of the highlights that we'll go through today, some concerning remarks by President Trump that I'm sure we'll unpack as well. But before we do all that, let's go ahead and dive into our sponsors that help keep this fantastic show up and running. And we'll talk about one of our favorites here between Alpha and I, and that's our friends over at Pet Club.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine, Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
All right. Badlandsmedia.tv/pet club. You can also check them out on episode 4 of America First Stories, and Alpha has them on DEF CON from time to time and whatnot. They're not cool enough for sit rep, I guess. Are they they're not veterans though. That's probably why. So there we go. But we still love them. Pet Club, fantastic products, man.
I was taking mine while we're doing the intro.
You always do that, and then you're like, oh, the yellow and the purple and the green and the blue and the orange and the pink and the
got them right here, all of them.
There you go. All right, so
life changing, brother. Life changing.
Let's also get a word from our friends over at Soft Disclosure.
One hero, one mission to deliver softness to America.
No, Chi-Chi, we can't stop for snacks, dude. We have to deliver all of these Soft Disclosure gift cards.
He goes by Zach Payne.
The motion detector.
Hey, stop fighting over the beer brush.
Life finds a way.
Hydrate your elbows. Moisturize your soul. Feel the rhythm together. You feel alive and let the lotion roll. Soft Disclosure. Hear the cry. Maximum softness. Do or die.
Muffin, hit it.
All right, softdisclosure.com. Promo code Muffin Hit It, get you 15% off. Fantastic. My dogs ate my tallow balm.
No, this is my lip balm.
Yeah, that's the tallow stick. It's a lip balm. Yeah.
Lip balm's made out of tallow?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is.
My dogs ate mine. Christy's like, it smells like but it smells like mint. I don't remember which fragrance it was, but she's like, it smells like that. I was like, babe, dogs can like break down scents like based on every individual component. They don't just smell what we smell. They smell every aspect of it, and their brain smells tallow, and they're like, beef, I'm going after that. And she's like, oh, like, yeah, that's why
also,
you can't.
Not a beer, beeswax.
That's why you can't like, you know, that's, and I'm sure you know this from your work with canines, but you can't like take weed, for example. You can't put weed in a bag full of cologne and the dog's not going to smell it. It's going to pick it up like that. It doesn't mask the smell from the dog, only from us. And so, and not even from us, really, to be honest with you. I mean, I've put some cannabis in a bag before and even in a sealed container, and it still gets out.
The best way to kind of describe it is, you know, when you go to, you know, you bite into a sandwich or a burger and you're like, oh, that's, you know, some American cheese. And, oh, and there was a tomato and there was lettuce, like your taste, you know, yeah, mustard. And oh, those are pickles, you know, like what your taste buds do is what think of that, the way that is the way their nose operates. So, you know, I gotta bring something up in that video, man, because at least I haven't heard anybody mention it, and I'm like, I can't be the only one. Just in the very beginning, when Zach goes, "No, Muffin, we can't stop for," doesn't it sound like he says sex?
Snacks.
I know he says snacks.
Just get your mind out of the butter.
No, my brain tells me to say snacks, but it don't sound like he said. It actually sounds. I'm telling you, man. If you play that part again, you can't. I'm gonna rely on the chat. All right. If you guys have heard it, all right. One, if you've heard The
I
three-letter S word.
I think Zach should sue you for defamation.
And
Yeah.
and 2, if you clearly hear snacks, like it's unmistakably snacks, put a 2. But if you question it that it could be what I'm referencing, number 1, you see, I'm telling you, bro. People are saying yes. I'm telling you, I knew I wasn't the only one.
Bro,
I knew I
you're
wasn't.
the Q guy. You can say anything and people will agree with you.
No, trust me, I piss people off.
Ash corrected me in the chat, said lip balm is beeswax and lanolin, not tallow. Brian is thinking of the mini tallow. That makes sense.
See? Oh.
That makes sense. Okay, so I was incorrect on that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into the show, guys. Smash that thumbs up.
No, you are not incorrect.
I'm not incorrect.
You are not incorrect. Ingredients. Ingredients.
Jeez.
Grass-fed and finished beef tallow, organic golden jojoba, organic beeswax, USA. Love that. Lanolin, grade A organic vanilla bean, and tangerine essential oil.
Well,
at least for the vanilla tangerine.
The dogs can smell every one of those components, and the beef tallow just sends them going crazy. Sends them crazy. All right, guys, smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. And let's get into the Fauci hearing yesterday. And what was your takeaway?
Because I came and got your 6. She's gonna attack one of the words I said. Like,
I know, of course she is. Of course she is.
I jumped on the grenade for you, brother. I jumped on the grenade for you.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. I mean, it's hard to find somebody that will take a shot for you like that, but I'm sure she'll have some corrections for you. I mean, Gusha and Guasha, all that stuff.
Gusha.
So what was your take on the Fauci hearing yesterday, the diaries and everything else that's been coming out on him over the last couple days?
Well, called it. So the night before on DEF CON, at the very, very end of the show, I said, hey, let's give some hopium and wild expectations. Don't hold our feet to the fire. And one of the things I said, I go, he's probably going to come out and plead the 5th. And then, of course, Josh and the audience is like, you can't. And I was like, I agree with you guys on that. Like, I don't disagree on that. But it doesn't mean he's not. And I go, and he will have his lawyers there. And people said, no, he can't. I said, he's going to. I said, but the thing about it is when he does plead the 5th, what my speculate is it's going to turn that into a pardon conversation, the legitimacy of the pardons, like that's going to resurface again. I go, so I think that'll come into play. So, obviously we all saw that happen. Here's what I'll say. I know a lot of people have kind of, and I haven't heard any of your takes. So I don't know what your position is on this. It was a show trial. It was a show trial. And I won't completely disagree with that, but there was something important that came out. Because you got to remember, it's not for us. Like everybody in this audience is very well versed on what Fauci's done. These are people that have probably gone through the emails. They watch what you do and what I do. Like these people that they'll hit a curveball 100% of the time. That's all dialed in our audiences. But you got to remember, the vast majority of people is the normie audience, and they got to hear the questions. And that was very important because the questions create the conversation of why are they asking them that? Well, what do you mean? And that's going to generate a conversation. How Trump responds to this, or Trump's DOJ and Congress, how they all respond to it, I think is going to be important.
So I said the day before when we were talking about the diary and all that stuff, I said, I hope they cancel the hearing because I don't want him to go in there if he can't plead the 5th, which obviously he did. I said, I don't want him to testify and say all these things and then turn out to delegitimize the pardons themselves. Because I think all this correlates with the Project Oversight releasing the tapes and having everything ready to go as quickly as they did, right? So, right before Fauci's about to testify, we find out that Joe Biden was a complete ball of mush back in 2017, right? He either willfully violated the law, releasing top secret national secrets to his ghostwriter. He either willingly did that without any authority whatsoever to do so, or he was so cognitively declined, which throughout the whole thing, he's like, I can't remember this. I forget. And people need to remember that's not him speaking in 2020 or 2024. That was him speaking within a couple of years of a lot of these major things happening, and he still couldn't recall. And so it either delegitimizes it on the fact that he was a criminal and he never should have been president, or it delegitimizes it on the cognitive, abilities of him. Either way, I think, you look at the whole quote unquote presidency of him, and he should have been 25th right off the bat. They knew this the whole time. The media knew it. They're complicit in all of this. And so I didn't want Fauci to go out there and actually testify and answer questions. And, potentially, when the pardons get delegitimized, you have to throw all that testimony out, because he did it under the presumption that he was in fact pardoned. I don't know how that would go. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen anything like that in our history before, where somebody has immunity and then that immunity is delegitimized. I don't think we've ever seen that before. So how would you even go about dealing with that? The other big good
to that particular part, because I was thinking about this all day. I was doing a lot yesterday, and I was running this scenario in your head to kind of see, what has a bigger net benefit, right? Now, one of the things that we know on the argument of why Fauci pled the fifth is because he's still on the hook for state charges.
Right. Exactly. That's the next point.
And who's more important, and I'm not going tinfoil hat here. It's just, I think this is legitimate. Who's more important in the eyes of the people, Obama or Fauci? I would say people would say Obama. Now, one of the arguments is made is the presidential protection and things like that. So I think what we're seeing here is the groundwork for how that stuff's going to be addressed. And what I think we're going to see is maybe the attack here is going to come from the state level, and maybe there's going to be federal assistance in those investigations. I don't know. I'm curious. What do you think is better? Win the court of public opinion by getting the public indictment of why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you delegitimizing the pardons? Why aren't you making the call for the people so strong that it pushes the states to actually move forward with these things?
Well, I mean, we saw, and we'll get into it here, but Florida has now said they're opening an investigation into it. And that was something that Ash and I talked about yesterday. And, part of the Fifth Amendment is still him, facing potentially charges at the state level. And that is because the preemptive pardons did not articulate a specific crime. And so, like, if the pardon was, you've committed the crime of seditious conspiracy, just using this as an example, that's a federal offense. And there are no, so you can't, I don't know that there's an equivalent at the state level that would apply to, federal duties, right? I don't think the state, like Florida, can't charge you for seditious conspiracy against the United States because that's not their jurisdiction, right? Their jurisdiction is the state of Florida. Now, could you get around that? Yeah, I'm sure, but don't look too into the example that I'm giving you here. The point is that because there's no a crime articulated, he can still incriminate himself at the state level against broadly a bunch of different things. He can also, the excuse that we're hearing that he could have perjured himself in, new testimony if he would have lied. Yeah, sure. Fair. But again, that applies to his Fifth Amendment rights against state level prosecutions as well. And being able to incriminate himself at the state level. So I think that was going to, that was what was ultimately going to happen. Again, I wanted the whole thing to be canceled. I just wanted it all to go away and just continue to let the diary itself kind of, ferment in everybody's mind and just sit there and go with that. But
one of the reasons I was so really believing he was going to do the fifth is because of what former special counsel Jack Smith did. And you see how they're coming after him now for the perjury, which they should, rightfully so. So anybody else that's going to take this stand after that's going to be like, listen, okay, if I'm held in contempt, what's that? I think contempt's 1 year max because it's a misdemeanor. Contempt's not that long. So hold me in contempt and give me a fine, or speak and really have some massive charges with massive consequences laid against me. You know.
So, first, the Jack Smith thing is something a lot of people are going to get rugged on, I think, big time, because he didn't perjure himself with the text messages. When he was asked about the specifically about the toll records that he got from Congress. The text messages he didn't get from Congress. He got those from NARA through a subpoena. And so people are going to get rugged on that. They think he perjured himself. He didn't. And I mean, in that specific context, I'm sure he's perjured himself outside of there. But in that specific context, everybody was freaking out about that. And I was reading about the nuance of it. And it's like, holy crap, it's actually going to be he's going to prevail in that challenge if they do go forward with it. There was something you brought up earlier about Obama and Fauci, and would you rather have Fauci or would you rather have Obama? And I don't. That's a really tough one for me.
Well, not
Fauci,
about who would you rather have. Who do you think is more important?
That exactly, and that's the same to me. That's the same context. I want the most important people, and that's a tough one for me because Obama's 8 years as president, and then since then, Fauci's 40 plus years. All right, think about the AIDS pandemic. Think about all of the Ebola, H1N1, like all of the viruses that have been thrust upon us. Think about the vaccinations that are going into our children. Think about all of these things, and how much did he actually know about this? Going back to AIDS, and I think a lot of us believe that AIDS is another one of those manufactured, another one of those manufactured crises. And if you buy into the Carrie Mullis AIDS theories about it, this was something that was, thrust on the American people by the likes of the bureaucrats under Fauci. And so, that's actually a tough one for me. Would I rather have Fauci or Obama if I had to absolutely only have one of the two? I think Obama's been or at least he started initially as a patsy, a 2-year senator thrust into the White House. Did he evolve since then? Yeah, of course he has. But, when Obama came on the scene in 2008, he was the junior senator out of Illinois, less than 2 years in the Senate or 4 years in the Senate. And then he's put on a ticket and he beats the Clintons. He beats, all these other big names in Democrat politics. So, I think obviously I'd like to have both of them, but if I had to choose between the two, that's a tough choice, man.
Well, you're going to get both of them. The point I was making is Obama's the more important fish. And I know people are talking about, look at all the people Fauci killed, because you're looking specifically at COVID. When you look at everything, those numbers change. When you look at wars, when you look at borders, when you look at the economic, like when you put it all together, things that led people to suicide, things that made people lose their insurance because of Obamacare. When you expand that out, those numbers change, people.
Yes.
And the reason we know Obama's more important, at least if you subscribe to the idea that there's people with some form of a plan in play, is because Fauci was on deck first. And that's the point I was trying to make, is what we witnessed with Fauci yesterday is because of the way the precedence is going to be handled of these things. Listen, Fauci's not going to walk. I'm not worried about that for 1 second. And Jack Smith is not going to walk in, and I have come out and said it publicly now. That what I think I told you in private is you're going to see him tied to a human trafficking investigation as well, with other judges and state officials. So, but people have to understand, you got to lay the foundation for these things to get there. Everybody's like, what do you arrest and what do you arrest? And we said this last year. What are you going to do with the rest when you got a court system and judges that have infiltrated, George Soros and other agencies that have bought them? You have to show people the lawfare. You have to show people the mechanism. You have to expose how it operates. So this way, then you can actually get legitimate justice when you do it.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about the broad net that Obama would cast as opposed to something a lot more narrow focus, micro, as opposed to macro with Fauci. But again, I don't think Obama is the top of the pyramid in his environment, in his sphere. I think Fauci is pretty close to the top in his. I think in terms of the biomedical warfare that's been waged against not just us but the rest of the world. I think Fauci's up there. Bill Gates, I believe, is up there. There's a couple other big names that are in the in terms of Fauci specific, the medical, the HIV, the vaccinations, and all of that stuff. And, it's like, do you want the big fish in a small pond, or do you want a medium-sized fish in the ocean? Well, maybe a little bit bigger than medium. I think Obama's pretty close to the top, but he's not there, right? So I don't know. That's a really interesting, kind of dilemma to throw at somebody. Would you rather Fauci or Obama? But let's get into the hearing itself. And we had a couple highlights that have caught the attention. This was Senator Bernie Moreno. I think a lot of people had this same sentiment that he has. If this was actually genuinely his driving factor, kudos, man. Like, this is like, we just got finished watching the Animal Kingdom. You ever watch that show, Animal Kingdom?
Maybe.
Dude, it's a pretty good show about a crime family out in Oceanside.
No, I haven't seen it then.
It's an Oceanside, California crime family. And I'm not going to ruin it all, but Moreno, with that type of like laser focus on an issue, would fit into that crime family very well if you've made it to the end of that movie, that show.
To myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the fuck do you think you were for doing that? It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace. So let me ask you an opportunity to answer one question. Will you apologize, just apologize, to the people who you harmed through your actions? Will you say, do you have the dignity to just say you're sorry?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So you won't apologize to the military members who Joe Biden summarily dismissed from the military for not taking the vaccine?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the business owners that lost their business, shattered their lives, and they'll never recover?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the moms who had to force their infant children, 2, 3, 4-year-olds, to put masks on, and what that did and how that traumatized those kids?
All right, so you guys get the point of where that's going. And for Senator Moreno, and again, I don't know if he actually ran for Senate under a narrow focus of I want to get Fauci. I think that's a little bit difficult of a pill, a little too big of a pill for me to swallow, but a motivating factor for sure. I think there's a lot of people in Congress that are silent, and unfortunately silent, that that was their motivating factor, was they ran because of what happened to all of us during COVID, the 2020 election, what the weaponization against President Trump, the weaponization against, U.S. citizens by the DOJ and others. And yeah, more power to it. You don't expect anything from Fauci in that, but that's on the record now that he won't even apologize for. But yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts on Moreno? I don't know if you.
I thought his portion probably most reflected the everyday American out of anything that unfolded in there. I'm with you on that. I think that was probably the closest you get to a real American being handed a microphone to ask Fauci something. I think that's the closest you got. I wish somebody, and correct me if I'm wrong because I don't remember hearing it. I wish somebody would have asked him this a simple question, because they did ask this question in more complex ways. But I wish you're helping a narrative here, right? Right. The court of public opinion is if they would have said, Tony, do you think you did anything wrong with regards to COVID? Anything?
I mean, he wasn't
He's still going to plead the fifth.
Exactly.
But that's the point.
Right. He wasn't going to answer a single question. I mean, I didn't watch the whole thing. I don't even know when Democrats, did Democrats even ask him any questions? And
They were just right there massaging it out, man. That's all they were doing.
Dr. Fauci, you were so great. You were brave and noble, and you led us through this pandemic gloriously. You were the best ever.
Was it Rand? Was it Paul? One of them towards the end, actually, I think there was one or two that might have done it. Asked them, do you know what the Fifth Amendment is? Do you know where it comes from? And he paused, and the camera's not on him, but you kind of hear some side chatter. So I think he was, asking his attorney. He just came back and said, I plead the fifth.
Yeah. Let's play this clip here from Senator Ron Johnson. This was a fantastic segment right here, talking about things that we had been talking about the entire freaking pandemic.
I've got the studies right here. There was a website that was tracking the random controlled studies. Here they are, showing 60-70% efficacy of ivermectin. The same day you say there's no evidence, there was all kinds of evidence. Loved ones had to go to hospitals, had to sue hospitals. Just, would you try it? So I would want to know, to what extent were you involved in sabotaging hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and did you do that because you knew the only way you get an emergency use authorization for these drugs, these experimental gene therapy, was if there was no effective treatment, you couldn't get the emergency use authorization. So is that why you helped sabotage these cheap generic drugs in favor of remdesivir, which, by the way, nurses, are you aware of the fact that nurses called it "run, death is near"?
On the advice of counsel, I respect.
Okay, so he's going to plead the fifth there. And, this is the chart that Senator Johnson was putting up there. 106 studies with more than 200,000 patients. They showed significantly lower risks for mortality, ventilation, ICU, hospitalization, recovery, cases, and viral clearance. 52% lower risk in the 54 random controlled trials. 47% lower mortality in 53 studies. And then you can see the charts over there on the right. And what Senator Johnson was talking about, I mean, this was something that, obviously following the 2020 election, that's where most of my work was done. But the two biggest things that I focused on before I was in Badlands and everything was COVID and obviously the election. And when COVID happened, I had whistleblowers that were coming out to me, and I had one whistleblower up in the northwest, excuse me. I'm going to say the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. And she came out and told me stories about patients that were coming into the ER. And I'm sure there's nurses in the chat that worked through the COVID era and are going to, be nodding their head like, oh yeah, we went through that, where patients would come in and claim to have COVID, and they'd be, fever symptoms and all that stuff. And the first thing they would do is put them on remdesivir. And remdesivir, one of the known side effects of that is renal failure, kidney failure. And one of the things that this nurse would tell me is that they would keep these patients dry. And so you have patients coming in that are already dehydrated from flu-like symptoms and everything else. They're already coming in very dehydrated, and you're putting them on this drug that has renal failure as an adverse effect to it, and it's killing them. It's literally causing their kidneys to shut down and their body to shut down. And this nurse would bring up, like, why are we not giving them fluids? Why are we not putting them on, whatever? they were killing them. When they say, remdesivir is run, death is near, that is literally, what they were calling it. And
I can't remember her name. She was also a nurse out of Hawaii, I believe. But it was her and Dr. Artis that first got my attention on the remdesivir. As far as it being, did you know that how many days on an infant? God, I don't remember, but they're making in like newborns, like within days, bro. Take that. So not just like the little ones like you're talking about, newborns. Insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is, the reason for that is, going off the top of my head, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but remdesivir was like thousands of dollars for a treatment. And it's, done in steps. It's not like just one pill and whatever. You have to take it in steps. And it was, I want to say it was like in total, I think it came out to like $5,000 or $6,000 for one, round of treatment on remdesivir. And this was the same time when President Trump was saying, I'm taking hydroxychloroquine, when other doctors were coming out and saying ivermectin works. And you had the Nigerian doctor that came out that was, saying, yeah, there it is. Dr. Stella Prevost put in the chat. They called her a demon. They immediately, they're like, hey, I've treated hundreds of patients with ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, and it's working. I have no patients that I've lost. And they're like, oh, look at her 10 years ago saying that she's exorcising demons and all. Like, that's what it is. Ad hominem attacks. As soon as this went on, there was another case where there was a woman in Texas, Dallas. Her husband was a sheriff and he got COVID, went to the hospital, was in like the ICU. They wanted to put him on a ventilator. The doctor, the wife was like, I want to try ivermectin. And the doctor's like, no, absolutely not. We're going to put him on a ventilator. And the woman went and sued. She went and sued to allow ivermectin. The appellate, the court said, yes, you have to allow her to give ivermectin to her husband, right? The hospital appealed the decision immediately. Appellate lawyers are big money. Appealed the decision immediately, locked the wife out of the hospital room and everything else. And the appellate court ended up saying no ivermectin. And so what she did is she got a paste and she went in there and started putting the ivermectin paste on his skin to absorb it through the blood, through the skin into the bloodstream. And he was healed. He came out of it okay. But the whole time
there was I'm not going to say her name. She might have said it publicly already. I'm not sure if she did or not, but she's a nurse. And I'm sorry, correction. She's a doctor. And she was telling people that where hospitals wouldn't allow them to, give them ivermectin, the pill or anything, to get the paste, like you said, and put it into a toothpaste, like a Colgate toothpaste. And then go in there and be like, can I at least brush my dad's teeth or my wife's teeth or, whoever it was, to get them the ivermectin. And it's just in the same outcome. And all of a sudden people had these turnarounds.
Yeah.
Crazy, dude.
It was so crazy what they did. And again, this is something that you're not going to get out of a congressional hearing. This is something that somebody is going to have to man up, grow a massive pair of balls, and dig into this, because this is something, when you start getting into that aspect of this pandemic, the quote unquote pandemic, and you start getting into the conspiracy and how deep this goes and how this was orchestrated between the federal government, a lot of these bureaucratic agencies, and the hospitals directly. And there was talking points that were marched out. There was, I think this is maybe a bigger conspiracy than the 2020 election, because I think it went global. And the 2020 election was isolated to the U.S. There may have been global influence and people outside of the United States that knew about it, but the COVID pandemic was every first world Western civilization, Western nation.
I the day before the hearings, I went on, and everybody probably has it. It's not isolated to just California, but it's an app called Nextdoor. Or Next Door Neighbor, something like that, right?
Next door.
Yeah. So I went on there and I posted, trying to get my little girl enrolled into school, but she's unvaccinated and I refuse to vaccinate her. Has anybody found any ways to accomplish this? Right now, for the record, just so everybody knows, I'm going to be homeschooling, my little one, unless we move or we see what happens with the governorship here in California. But in California, just there are no exemptions. Like even people, well, you can get a medical one. You have to go to their doctors that have been certified. I think it's called California Care or something like that, and it's for things like chemotherapy. Like they didn't give you any out, right? So you have to go into the homeschooling. Well, anyways, not to get off track, but I wanted to see the conversation and reactions it was going to generate, right? Because that's definitely a normie app to the max, and it pulled out both crowds, man. There was people on there keep them unvaccinated, homeschool, and there are other people on there. Oh my God, unvaccinate your or vaccinate your kids. There was one comment. I should quote it, but I have to go look for it. But this person said, "You have a right to be stupid for your kids, but you don't have a right to be stupid by putting your unvaccinated kids next to other vaccinated kids." So remember that, and I did it the day before the Fauci hearing because I want to gauge. I'm going to keep tabs on this conversation as the weeks progress and more information develops, because I want to see how this affects, mainstream America. Not you guys. You guys, most of the people in this audience can quote all these studies we're talking about, but we're not the majority.
What do you mean we're not the majority?
There are more people that don't know this information. Well,
okay.
I would make the argument maybe the next couple, last couple of days, last couple of weeks, this number's probably shifted. But when you go back, pre-Trump 2.0 administration, there are more people that don't know the information that we know than know it.
Okay, that's fair. I think there's more people that have woken up that even not knowing that information, they're still like, what they did to us was bullshit, and we can never allow that to happen.
Yeah,
again.
because you even have the left that has that mentality.
Yes. As far as things like when you go back and even people in MAGA have forgotten, like when you go back, I think John was playing this the other day, the clip on how they thwarted President Trump the whole time during COVID. Like Trump would come out and say something. I know I played the clip of Trump coming out and saying it came from a Wuhan lab, and then like 5 seconds later, Fauci's on that same exact podium saying, no, genealogists have gone back and looked at the lineage of this bat, and it evolved from the bat. And it's like, that's absolute bullshit. That's bullshit, Fauci. You put in your journal that only 2 out of 12 bought into the natural origin theory when you proposed it, or when it was proposed, the proximal origin, whatever it was called, natural origin. Nobody bought into that. 2 people out of 12, and you came with absolute certainty and overruled the president. Like you stepped on the president's toes in saying that right after he got done saying it came from a lab in Wuhan. So, a lot of people don't realize how, like, the nuance behind that. And again, this tracks to that conspiracy. This tracks to the global conspiracy. It's also interesting, President Trump's like trying to push back against the criminal courts right now, international criminal courts, because that, bring them all in.
He got a country to leave already. Which one was it?
It was the third, Chad.
Yes.
Chad left. Yeah. And yes. And I think you're going to see a lot more starting to leave as well, but bring them all back here. Let's do a Nuremberg, a real Nuremberg, not the, the facade that's taught to us in schools. We held those Nazis accountable. We really got them. Yeah. Okay. Anybody that was important, Operation Paperclip, got shuffled into the United States, re-identified, sent down to Argentina. That's why Argentina's full of blonde hair and blue eye, citizens down there now. But anyways, all right, let
me address 2 things.
Go ahead.
One, someone said they want you to think that Alpha, we're the majority. I'm not talking that, and that's why I'm glad Brian provided clarity here. I'm not talking about our position and our mentality. I'm talking about knowledge base.
Right.
If you go to your local mall and you start asking people about continuity of government, the Smith Modernization Act, they're not going to have any clue what you're talking about.
But they'll
They're-
know that the media propagandizes you.
Yeah, they'll know that, oh man, media is lying to us, government's lying to us, but their government position, especially if on the other side, might be more based off of because it's Trump rather than the instrument of the entire government. So there's that. The other part with the Nextdoor app, I don't think it's a liberal cesspool. There's a lot of conservative conversation on there, but it's very normie conservative conversation. A lot of, like I said, there was equally on that post, and no, I don't want to post it because it has people's real names. But there was just about as many people saying good job, homeschool, people private messaging, as it was the the retards, right? So just keep it, you know what I'm saying.
There's just, well, I mean, people can keep getting their news from a guy who's made famous because he can do an impersonation of President Trump.
I like Sean, bro.
I do
like
too.
Sean.
I love Sean Farish.
And I'll tell you, here's what I'll say.
I love Sean Farish. I would not get news from Sean Farish. I would get Trump impersonations from him.
I would say that. I wouldn't rely solely on Sean Farash for my news, but I would definitely push the audience to watch him, and here's why. It's going to be a shameless plug, but it's to make a point.
God, here we go.
On Fridays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, I do a show called Geopolitics in 30 Minutes. It's not like Ghost. This one's actually 30 minutes, right? The one me and Ghost do on Sundays goes on for a long time, but I love that. Chris Moreno used to be a DNC operative. I think you've been on some of the on shows that I've done with them where we do some of the debates and stuff like that. I've had him and James R and stuff like that on there. But Chris's perspective and the way he does his analyze is 100. Well, I won't say 100 now because it's hard for anybody, but I would say it's about 85% to 90% normie represented. And that's important. And the reason that's important is because that narrative is still in play. There's still, listen, these polls and these things that are running, people have to understand that. Like, I still watch Fox and CNN, not because that's where I'm going to learn my takes. It's where I'm going to learn where this narrative is going. It's where I'm going to learn what they want me to understand, how they want me to see the picture. Because if you solely just listen, I know people are not going to like this, but I'll say this is probably one of the reasons I feel that I've been accurate on stuff. If you solely listen to people like Just Me and Just CannCon and Just Us, yes, you're going to get our best attempt at accuracy and honesty, hands down. But there's no way we can cover and analyze all the material and information that's out there. It's not possible. And so the reason I still watch these other platforms is because it lets me gauge what's the direction and momentum that the Mockingbird media has. And when you can combine the enemy's information, normie information, and the guys like us, Badlands, our information, when you can put all that in front of you, you have a way bigger data set to do an analysis and assessment of what's coming. That's just my opinion, and I understand I could be wrong, but I think it's really made me pretty accurate on some things, way ahead of a lot of people.
Yeah, the problem is people never get exposed to anything beyond that. And I've had conversations with a lot of these people. I've never had a direct conversation with Sean Farash. And again, I like him. I think he's full blown in the Israel simp world, full blown. And that's fine. I know that's a hard band-aid for a lot of normie conservatives and MAGA, whatever, to rip off. That's a hard one, very hard one. So, I don't hold that against people, it's not like that's not a determining factor for me. There are certain, like Shapiro, forget about that guy. Like there's full blown retard. And then there's, you just don't know yet, or maybe you do know and whatever. But, the problem that I have is like people watch that and they think they're totally based and they're getting all the deep down like news that that is the mainstream media now. That is the mainstream media. There's, Right now, there's 34,000 people watching that show right now. 34,000 people that think they are getting like the hardest hitting, deep analysis of the news. And it's not. These people are not, I'm not going to say they're not intelligent, because I think they're all very intelligent. They're not knowledgeable. They're not knowledgeable. They don't have anywhere near the level. They do their show, and then they go on social media and they build up their following. We do our show and we get to work. We start reading documents. We start reading analysis. We start reading assessments. They don't do that.
They are the off ramp to us, though, because I think there's a progression of intellectual growth, or maybe just the true, the awakening, right? And as people realize mainstream media is lying to me, the CNNs, the Fox, right? I'm going to go into this other world, right? This alt media world, this social media influence world, right? Substacks, and they come across the Sean Farashes, the Viva Fries, these others. Then they're like, yeah, this feels more real to me, right? Because this is this internal growth mechanism that's there. Yeah. And then from there, all of a sudden it's like, there's more to this. Like, I get where you're coming from, plug in whoever's name, right? But there's more to this. And then they start to do more. As they become more independent, that's what brings them to us. Because then when they start to search these things and certain headlines and titles, CannCon show is going to populate, Badlands is going to show up. And then that's when they're going to land into this audience where they'll be like, oh, this is where the juice from the lemon's at. This is where it's at. But it's very hard to get free people that are in that mainstream mentality to immediately get to us. They're gonna be like, nah, y'all mother effers are crazy. It's like, so there's a need for that. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people, and I guess the reason I have that position is because that's my story. And I'm not going to mention names because I have friendships with a lot of these people, and I do care about and like a lot of them. But I remember when I first took my red pill, who I was relying on for information. And now I know, because even I have people that I turn to when I have questions about things. There's a pathway to get there. I'm telling you guys, if you guys would have came and put Badlands in front of me in 2019, 2018, I would have been like, guys, y'all need to go take some medication. Y'all crazy.
Well, Badlands wouldn't have existed in 2019 because maybe not by 2019, I think it might have. But I mean, half of us, not us, me personally, but half of Badlands was liberals and maybe before 2019. I think that was already into, Q and everything else. But defected liberals, and I'm a defected Republican, now a libertarian, small L, constitutional conservative, whatever you want to call it. All right, let's get this program back on track. We went off on a tangent here.
That's a good one, though. That was a good one.
Main Street. Well, it's something
I enjoyed that.
People need to hear that, man. People need to understand that the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act has evolved outside of, Project Mockingbird and, Operation Mockingbird, Project Mockingbird has evolved from the mainstream television tube into the podcast sphere. And I was talking with Ash last night about this, and I'm not going to say it publicly on air, but there is an op going on right now on a lot of these streaming platforms that is glaring. And
you got to tell me after the show.
I will tell you after the show. You guys need to figure it out on your own, but it's there. And
I'll tell you guys. Watch.
Alpha will jump on it. All right, let's get back into the hearing. This was Rand Paul closing out with getting everybody's hopium up.
Next week on contempt. I think there's another legal question that the courts may have to decide upon, and that is whether or not a presidential pardon that offers you complete immunity, that you can still claim that you need protection from immunity when you've been protected. Because Dr. Fauci isn't liable for anything as long as he tells the truth, even if he admits that he destroyed records on a routine basis. His assistant said she destroyed a ton of emails. I think it was a routine thing. I think he destroyed throughout his career there probably thousands of emails. Even if he did that, as long as he answered truthfully, yes, I did. I didn't think that was important. I made a mistake. you can't be prosecuted for it. Many of the things are outside the statute of limitations as well. All he had to do today, if he wanted to testify, was be honest. As long as he was honest, even about committing a crime, he would have no jeopardy. But I think the pardon has given him more immunity than most people would ever get. Like if you offer a witness immunity in exchange for testimony, he has blanket immunity. The president gave him blanket immunity for virtually anything he could have possibly done, while at NIH. So I think we all have to individually answer this question. We welcome you to be part of helping us figure out the question, but there will be a vote, at least right now, we plan to be a vote next week on contempt.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
First of all, he is wrong on nothing could have happened. He is so wrong on that.
Well, is he?
Yeah, he can be the state. He can have state charges still brought against him. And remember this.
Hold on. Let's pause there. What state charges? What state can bring charges for destruction of emails? Can't. It's a federal institution. The state has no jurisdiction in that.
If those emails were utilized in state computers, no. Listen, the second one of those emails has a CC to a state representative, or a state hospital or the Secretary of State. The second that email, yes, it does, because it's jurisdiction.
He would have executive privilege of the executive government because he's with an agency.
Again, for federal charges.
State would not be able to pierce that.
Absolutely, a state can still come after him. He can. And guess what? He's not just on the hook for our country. He went and spoke in other countries too.
No, I get that. I agree with that.
So saying that he's completely off the hook that ain't the case.
He's not completely off the hook, and he does have state charges that could be brought. Destruction of emails.
And remember, a lot of people forget this. RICO can also be civil.
Also, just real quick, to your point about destruction of emails, the state would have those emails still. He can't destroy it on both ends. So to your point there about a state bringing charges, there would be no injury. The state would still have those emails documented. So the state would not have an injury. The only injury there would be at the federal level where the emails are deleted from his access. And again, I think that is an executive issue. But if he did delete emails like Rand Paul's kind of hinting at there, the states will have those if they were subject to him. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't.
It doesn't matter how many carbon copies or anything there is if there's destruction of evidence. Again, there's an argument that's going to be made from the position you're taking, but there's going to be an argument that made too are still incomplete. For this to be a complete conversation, we need those too, and you deleted it. So that same argument can be made on both sides of that coin.
Yeah, but you can't. So say the Attorney General in Florida wants to charge Dr. Fauci, Anthony. I'm not calling him doctor anymore. Excuse me. I apologize. Fauci wants to charge Fauci for destruction of emails. What grounds does he bring as a state attorney general? What charge does he bring? Because Fauci is not subject to the state of Florida in any way, shape, or form. He works for a federal government agency. The state cannot bring charges for destruction of an email to a federal government agency outside of its jurisdiction. So unless Fauci's in Florida deleting emails, which if he is, that you might have an argument there. But if he's not,
because it's electronic communications, it's the same thing like wire fraud that happens, from one state to another. It's a lot of people think is jurisdiction solely as the place where something happened or the place where something originated. There are certain crimes that jurisdiction transcends the entire journey of whatever that thing is.
But he's
and
not.
When it comes to electronics and electronic communications, there's a lot of arguments that have been made in this world about that. So, for instance, we'll do this. Let's just say that, and I'll use hypothetical. I'm not going to use Fauci on this. You have John Smith, right? And John Smith is using a federal computer for CP, right? We're on YouTube. I don't want to risk it. Y'all know what CP is, right? Child something. And all of a sudden, John Smith knows he's under investigation. So he deletes that on his federal work computer. But he was sending that to his buddy that is a social worker in the state of Florida. So the social work on the state of Florida has this back and forth between this CP that they're both engaged in, right? There's an investigation that takes place. The guy in Florida gets arrested. So John Smith says, oh man, they're onto us, deletes all the stuff on his computer. He is going to get charged in Florida for not just the transmitting of CP, not this, but also the destruction of evidence to that, even though it's done on a federal computer, because the electronic stuff is just different the way it's handled when it comes to jurisdiction and the totality of the crime.
Yeah, and you're expanding the scope now significantly, which
Well, no, I'm just using that one for an example because it's more clear to understand. But if you think of emails as the variable of this crime, it's the same mechanism for that when it comes to the investigation and charging.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not disagreeing that he didn't commit other crimes, but destruction of the emails, like he should have to testify about that. And there's nothing that a state could charge for destroying.
You can. It's like let's say I commit a. You can. This is why. Let's say I go and I have a cell phone with evidence on it, and I go and destroy the cell phone. Like you see me on camera, just poof, poof, going Hillary Clinton on my phone, right? That's destruction of evidence. Now, just because me, the investigator, can come in and recover that, now it's like, well, how are you charging me for destruction of evidence? You recovered the photos from my phone. No, you still destroyed it. Just because I have the ability to access it or recover it doesn't mean you didn't do the crime.
There's no crime unless he's being investigated or charged with something. Destroying emails is not destruction of evidence.
Or that will take us into a different conversation of being able to prove the intent.
Right, but specifically what he's saying is destruction of emails because of open records request, and that is you can't, and that's not. Hold on. I let you go for a long time there. That has nothing to do with destruction of evidence. That has to do with destruction of records that are forced to be retained under federal law. You can't. Florida. That's what Rand Paul is talking about there when he says he may have deleted all of these emails. The evidentiary value of it means nothing because no crime has been articulated by a state yet, and so deleting that, you can't call that destruction of evidence. Florida cannot say to Florida cannot say to Fauci, hey, you destroyed emails under Florida record retention laws. We're going to charge you, because he's not subject to Florida record retention laws. He's subject to federal record retention laws. Florida cannot bring charges for that. Only the federal government can bring charges for that. So that's what Rand Paul's talking about there. Now, I agree with you wholeheartedly that there's a plethora of other crimes that states individually will be able to charge. And once they bring an investigation into that, like Utmeyer has now, anything, Utmeyer announced this investigation yesterday. Anything Fauci deletes from here out is absolutely subject to destruction of evidence, willful destruction of evidence.
So yes, everything from this point on, the argument is it's a slam dunk. But something doesn't have to have the title of evidence in order for it to be deemed destruction of evidence. This comes into the argument, and like I said, and this is what's going to get very complicated in all the different states, but these people argue it all the time, so it won't be hard for them. It's harder to explain the process. But this is what goes into the idea of intent. What did Fauci, this is what a courtroom would have to prove, and it's far more complicated than this, but I'm just going to do it at the surface level. What a court would have to prove is, what did Fauci know and what was his understanding and intent at the time that he did it? Did he just delete it in the normal course of his work? Every 30 days, 90 days, he'd go in and delete emails to, maintain the capacity of his hard drive. That'd be reasonable. I wouldn't make the argument of destruction of evidence. But if a court comes in and says, all of a sudden, this was in the headlines and this was in the headlines, these questions were being populated. He had prior conversations with other representatives or congressional people to where he knew that there would, somewhere down the line, there would be the expectation to have access to this information. He knew that. He understood that. That's the part that they got to prove. If they can prove that part, then it is destruction of evidence.
It's going to be a very heavy lift.
It just depends on how much information they have available. And if they don't have enough information, I don't think they charge it. If they charge it, then that means they probably have enough information to support it.
So I was going to read this article here from the Associated Press, kind of in line with what we were talking about earlier about what, your normie is seeing about this hearing. Associated Press, Fauci repeatedly invokes Fifth Amendment in contentious Senate committee hearing. He repeatedly invoked the Fifth. It shielded Fauci from answering questions that could expose him to accusations of lying under oath. Though he received a pardon, some Republicans pursuing a years-long campaign for his arrest had suggested he could still face charges for any perjury committed during Wednesday's hearing. In response to angry, sometimes mocking questions from Republican senators, Fauci declined to answer more than 100 times, injecting new drama into partisan divide that had festered for years about the origins and the handling of the pandemic. Rand Paul announced a vote next week on whether to hold Fauci in contempt for declining to answer questions, but did not say whether he would push for criminal contempt referral to federal prosecutors or another charge. He also raised the question about whether Fauci's pardons affect his eligibility for Fifth Amendment protections. In the heated moment, they talk about Rand Paul ejecting David Schertler, Fauci's attorney, saying that Schertler said that it was quote unquote outrageous and demonstrates the completely biased and baseless nature of this proceeding. Leading up to the hearing, Paul released more than 1,000 pages of Fauci's personal diary. That was in the federal record. That's not personal once it's in the federal record, but of Fauci's personal diary, pointing to some notes about how the virus emerged. Paul said on social media that what Fauci wrote privately and what he told the country are two different stories. Some of the diary entries, and I love this. This is the best framing of this you could ever see from the mainstream media. Some of the diary entries, including Fauci's uncertainty in the pandemic's earliest days, as scientists around the world raced to understand the new virus and how best to curb it before vaccines could be created, already were reflected in a 2024 memoir and in interviews at the time. The uncertainty in how the pandemic's earliest days, I don't think we ever knew from his memoir or anything else that Fauci predicted that what he told Congress about the 2% to 3% mortality rate was overstated by tenfold, and that it was actually in line with the flu. And those were his personal notes versus what he testified to in Congress. I don't think that was in his memoir. That is one of the biggest accusations or one of the biggest things that was exposed in these diary entries. Also, the school closures was a pretty big one, but I don't know if you want to comment on that.
No, I'm addressing something important in the chat, but keep going. But this is important.
Oh boy.
No, it's side conversation.
In a public letter, more than 150 infectious disease experts and other scientists wrote that, quote, no credible evidence had been produced to support these absurd charges, and that they are urged elected officials to stop these witch hunts. Among the topics discussed was whether NIH-funded research in China may have played a role in how it started. Many scientists believe the virus most likely emerged in nature. Okay, again, if you read the diary, it wasn't many scientists, it was 2 out of 12. Believe the virus most likely emerged in nature and jumped from animals to people and spread at a wildlife market. There's no new scientific evidence supporting the theory the virus might instead have leaked from a laboratory. Notice how they put that there. There's no new evidence. That's a qualifying word. If you take that out and you say there's no scientific evidence supporting the theory might instead have leaked from a laboratory, that's a totally different sentence than there's no new evidence, meaning as of the diary, there isn't anything in the diary that suggests there's other evidence. Well, of course, there's not anything in the diary that would suggest that. Fauci wasn't going to document that in his diary. But you see what I mean? Like, that's how the media kind of, because somebody will go out there and be like, oh, the Associated Press said there's no evidence that this came from a lab leak or from a lab leak. No, that's not what they said. They said there's no new evidence. There's a shit ton of evidence that this came from a lab leak. There's just nothing new from the diaries.
And there will be new evidence because the as you're articulating, the existing evidence is what's going to lead to probable cause in other investigations, which is going to end up which I think is already happening. But publicly, then we will have new evidence.
Yeah. Let's play this clip here, and this is the based and red pilled normies and what they heard. This was Stephen Miller on Laura Ingraham, who was in the courtroom, by the way.
Broken healthcare establishment. President Trump was the one who questioned the origins of COVID. President Trump is the one who questioned the need for requiring every single American to be tested over and over and over again. He's the one who questioned whether we should require children and healthy adults to be subject to restrictions for an illness that primarily targets the elderly and the sick.
Yeah, but Stephen, Fauci was all over the place on television. Yeah, yes,
but remember,
he
Laura,
went out
it's
there.
too easy to rewrite the history of this period. I was there, Laura. I have to be very clear on this point. President Trump saved America from a Great Depression by fighting against those who wanted to shut down the schools and shut down our way of life. He fought to reopen the government. And if you remember, the Biden campaign in 2020 spent hundreds of millions of dollars demonizing President Trump for fighting to keep America open at every single step. Every day, the news cycle was the so-called healthcare establishment attacking President Trump for questioning the experts. And President Trump, at the same time, moved heaven and earth because there were people who did have pre-existing conditions, they had comorbidities, who did need help. He moved heaven and earth to get our hospitals the equipment and materials they need, which is why we had a vastly lower death rate than all the other developed nations of the world. So I salute President Trump for what he achieved, and I'm glad that America got to see in the hearing today exactly why President Trump fought the healthcare establishment the way that he did.
So that's the kind of the normie take. I mean, everything we just talked about there, except more in depth. Now, this is what has everybody pissed off. You saw Trump's questions, right? In the Oval. All right. This is what has everybody fired up. And I can't for the life of me understand why, but
Fauci spoke the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times today.
Yes, sir.
Rand Paul said he's going to hold a vote on holding him in contempt of Congress. Do you think Dr. Fauci should face repercussions for this?
okay, so he's asked, Rand Paul saying he should be held in contempt of Congress. Do you think that Fauci should be held in contempt of Congress?
Well, I watched the whole thing today, but more importantly, I was a part of the whole Fauci. I inherited Fauci. He was here from the 1980s, so I had him for a period of time. And I disagreed with him on a lot. I would have had it close down the whole country if I listened to him. I went the Federalist way, which is basically to let the governors decide. And generally speaking, the Republican governors did very well. The Democrat governors did not very well. But Fauci wanted to have nobody wearing masks, if you remember, and then everybody had to wear 5 masks, as many masks as you could get. I mean, he made a lot of mistakes. And he wasn't a big factor for me. He was a very big factor for Biden. And if you remember, even though we were sort of prime time in terms of that whole disaster of COVID, far people died fewer in the Trump administration than in the Biden administration. We ran it well. Operation Warp Speed was talked about as being one of the great success stories anywhere in the world, actually. And we did a good job. But many more people died under Biden than died in the Trump administration from COVID. COVID was a disaster, but Fauci did not help.
Okay, so we'll pause there for just a second before we get into the second half. First and foremost, he says, I took the Federalist position. That would be the anti-Federalist position. I don't know if that was deliberate or not, but, ceding that duty to the state governors would be anti-federalism. Do you have anything you want to say about what he said there specifically?
I don't know why people are upset about this.
Well, the next part's the part that has everybody upset. Okay, so the one thing I want to point before we get into the part that has
people are pissed on that part because he says Operation Warp Speed was a great success. They are pissed about that.
that was we've unhashed this many times.
I agree.
Operation Warp Speed was a must. If we didn't have Operation Warp Speed, they would have kept us locked down forever. They would have,
and we would have had a true economic collapse.
Yes. And even beyond that, we found out that Pfizer allegedly had 94% success rate and 96% efficacy with the quote unquote vaccine in October of 2020. So even if it was successful, Alpha, if President Trump came out in October, now think of this as, let me pull this down for a second. Think of this from the normie brain, okay? The Fox News viewer, the CNN viewer, the mainstream media viewer. If President Trump came out in October of 2020 and said, hey, guess what, guys? Operation Warp Speed, this program that I put out there to cut red tape on the vaccine and get it out there so we could go back to normalcy. 96% effective rate. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna get out of this. In October of 2020, a month before the election, do you think like, why even have an election? It's a landslide. It's a landslide. It'd be like declaring World War II just ended right before an election. It's a landslide. Like every independent voter would be like, greatest president ever. He said he was going to do this. He did it. Look at this. It's perfect. But no, Pfizer withheld that until after they determined that Joe Biden was the elected SCOTUS. So even like going just in the normiest view right there, that's election interference. That is a policy that President Trump implemented to allow that vaccine to make its way. And guess what? I think it was deliberate. I think Trump knew damn well. Trump knew. And he's like, I don't want this on me. I don't want to touch this. That's why he never mandated it for anybody. He never, whatever. I'll land that there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. Trump was always going to be the president for the 250th anniversary. Just so you guys know, that was never not going to happen.
I mean, why would you want to miss out on the 250th, the World Cup, the Olympics?
You can't be the greatest president in 1,000 years. You're going to be the 250, the 500, the 750, and the 1,000, and the birth president, right? Those are the only ones that would even be considered, and you would have to have an impeccable presidency to do that. So he was always going to be the president on July 4th, 2026.
I agree with that 150%. You are spot on with that. The thing I wanted to point out before we play the part that's like pissing everybody off is I'm pretty sure that he's up there with Secretary Duffy and others. And like, how cool would that be to be in the Oval Office, right, with Donald J. Trump, and you clear off the Resolute desk completely, and you roll out blueprints of an airport, and you start, because that's what they're going over right there. Is they're going over, I think those are airport blueprints, and you just roll out, and you got President Trump there, one of the most well-known builders in our country's modern history. And you're just laying out blueprints on the Resolute desk, and you're like going over architecture with POTUS. A guy, if you read Art of the Deal, pays attention to door hinges. Like, how freaking awesome would that be, man?
Pretty cool, man.
All right, let's play the rest.
I think I won't go on a tangent, but I think there's quite a few people that have stories from being a part of that administration.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so this is the part that has everybody freaking out.
Do you think that the DOJ should reopen the investigation to the auto pen, specifically pertaining to Fauci?
Well, the only thing you can really think about is the auto pen, because the most powerful thing the president has, they say, is the power of pardon. So he was pardoned by Biden, and I respect that. I know how powerful it is. It's a very powerful, they say it's literally the most powerful thing a president has. Now, whether or not I sign my things directly, almost everything I sign directly. You're witness to many of them. He signed very few. The only thing I know that he signed was Hunter Biden's pardon, but I'm not sure that he signed, he probably didn't sign this one. So I can't tell you what the law is. I've heard that you have to have a lot of proof. You need to have letters. You need to have all sorts of things that the person operating the auto pen has to know exactly what it's all about. He didn't know what it was about because I saw him testify. So maybe there's something on the auto pen. Other than that, the power of pardon is very powerful.
So there's a lot of things he says there, and everybody wants to focus in on Trump saying, I respect that, meaning Biden allegedly pardoned him. I respect that. I mean, as far as we're told right now, as far as the official record reflects, he did. He pardoned him. Now he goes on from there and starts talking about the legitimacy of the auto pen and all the proof. Is he saying that you need proof to overturn it, or is he saying that you need proof to legitimize it? If it's done with the auto pen, because he says, he doesn't say, I need proof to overturn it. He says, you need a lot of proof. And have you listened to that part again? Let me play that part one more time.
In the Trump administration from COVID. COVID was a disaster, but Fauci didn't say it's literally the most powerful thing a president has. Now, whether or not I sign my things directly, always, almost everything I signed directly. You're witness to many of them. He signed very few. The only thing I know that he signed was Hunter Biden's pardon, but I'm not sure that he signed, he probably didn't sign this one. So I can't tell you what the law is. I've heard that you have to have a lot of proof. You need to have letters. You need to have all sorts of things that the person operating the auto pen has to know exactly what it's all about. He didn't know what it was about because.
So he never says you have to, he never qualifies those things as being necessary to delegitimize. Like like in other words, Trump isn't saying, oh, I have to have proof that Joe Biden didn't know this. He's saying, no, Joe Biden has to have proof that he did know. Joe Biden has to have proof that if you're using the auto pen, you have to have some sort of a paper trail here with Joe Biden's name on it saying, I gave them authorization to do that. That was my take on that.
I agree with you. I understand the different positions, but neither of them even matter because what he qualifies himself at the very beginning. I don't know the law. So he right there, he's providing an opinion. Now, granted, he's the president, the most powerful man in the world. But at the end of the day, if his DOJ comes before him and says, hey, we have this evidence regarding the auto pen, he's going to go through with it. You know, it's the same thing with, you know, he's not going to do anything about COVID the last 9 years, however long it's been, right? He's not going to do anything about that. And all of a sudden, here we are. Epstein, he's not going to do anything about that. All of a sudden, you know, disclosure and emails are coming out. Trump, and especially if you're someone that follows the board, he has to, for the purposes of optics, you know, maintain this position. Because what did Trump show us back in his first presidency? You know, you need to take this vaccine. And what did we have? People like Kamala Harris and all of Hollywood, I'll never take this vaccine. And that became the mentality of everything Trump. If you like him, you're going to do what he says. If you don't like him, you're not going to do what he says. And granted, you know, that's very generalized, and we've matured out of that mentality. At least a lot of people have, but it still exists. So if Trump comes out and says Fauci's guilty, the auto pen's bad, he's making it a very bipolar issue. When he comes out and he threads the needle and he stays in the gray, he doesn't. And I think that's the part that's important here. He is not convoluting what's important, and he's allowing the process to be the process. Because if he takes a hard stance on it, it becomes bipolar.
Who do you think he means? Who do you think he's talking about when he says, I watched him testify? Because Joe Biden hasn't testified, as far as I know. He says, I watched him testify. Let me pull it back up.
I saw him testify what it's all about. He didn't know what it was about because I saw him testify.
I think he is referencing Joe Biden, but I guess
Joe Biden testify about.
I don't think he's talking about testifying. I think he's talking about when he was God, what's the word? The tapes that got released, deposition. I think he's referencing his deposition. Now, I guess you can call a deposition you testifying. I'd have to look into that. But I think that's what he's referencing.
When was he deposed?
You haven't seen the Biden tapes?
Oh, you mean the her stuff?
Yeah, the her stuff where it shows his competence.
That was before all these pardons.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying is if you saw his competence level there, how can he do a pardon?
Oh, okay. So you think he said okay. So that's a really good take. Because I was sitting here trying to think, who's he talking about testifying? That's a good take. Him saying, I saw him testify. I saw the depositions. And I think that the release of the her tapes coming out right before the Fauci, that was deliberate. I think
100%. 100%.
That's okay. That's an interesting take on that. I like that take. That's fascinating because that's one of the things I said on Monday. I said this guy was incompetent. You need to retroactively, if you can preemptively pardon somebody, you can retroactively 25th somebody, and he needs to be retroactively 25th. Now, again, I also me and Chris Paul have talked about this many times. To me, the delegitimizing of the pardons was always kind of the baby step to delegitimizing his presidency as a whole. And again, I still, this is why when people are freaking out now, we're not on the timeline yet. We are moving into the phase, but we still got November 3, 2026. We got to wait until after that before we start seeing the screws being turned.
You have to listen. We all have to acclimate to things being delegitimized, because if we did, let's just say, and hypothetical here, let's just say we delegitimize the 2020 election because the evidence is just, it's irrefutable, right? And then that opens up the query into other elections. And what if we find out 2016 had that? Well, guess what? You'd be delegitimizing Trump's administration and so on and so on. But then again, if you delegitimize that first administration, then that means Trump would only have one presidency, which then opens up the conversation for 2028.
I made the argument because we've been talking a lot, quite a bit about how can Trump, go on and serve another term if everything's in place, whatever as it is, and that's one of the arguments that I've made. Trump has never been legitimately elected either, and if we delegitimize elections, he's never been legitimately elected either.
Bannon, I know a lot of people don't like him, but Bannon made a statement last year. It wasn't this year. I think it was last year. He was doing an interview. I can't remember which two. It was a man and woman that interviewed him, and they were talking about, well, he says, he can run for another presidency. And Bannon comes out and he says, well, he goes, I'm not going to get into that right now, but it's going to have to do a lot with how we define terms. The conversation is, listen, the playbook's already out there for what's going to happen. We're just going to see it unfold.
Well, the playbook is known. I don't know if any of us know any insight into what it's going to be. All we can do is speculate. Yeah, that's all we can do. Okay, let's move on. And just real quick, we talked about this earlier. I'll just bring it up briefly. Attorney General James Utmeyer, Fauci's lack of candor to Congress is unbelievable. My office is launching an investigation into Fauci. It's past time we get the truth of what happened during COVID. We already got the truth. Just hit me up. I'm in Florida. Hit me up. I'll come up there. I'll live with you guys for a little bit and lay it all out for you. And that's all I've really got to say about that. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Come join.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about our next sponsor here, guys, and make self-care great again this summer with All Good by Jessica Storm. Head outside with All Good's Bug Out Balm, full of citronella, eucalyptus, and lavender oils to naturally repel the critters, and tallow sunscreen with non-nano zinc oxide for natural sun protection. It's no mystery that ingredients like in so many it has no mystery ingredients, like in so many commercial products, just 100% clean organic ingredients with purpose. The sunscreen, fantastic. I forgot it on Sunday. I went and fell asleep in the sun. You never do that in Florida, and I did not put it on. I will never forget to put that on before I go out in the Florida sun, even if I think it's only going to be for like 30 minutes. Nope. And if the sun has your hair feeling a little dry, show it some extra love with the Tallow Hair Mask, a customer favorite for softer, healthier hair after just one use. Everything is handcrafted in small batches by Jessica in Florida, our very own Jessica, I might add, with quality and simplicity at the heart of it all. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/allgood and use promo code Badlands to discount your entire purchase and support the creators here at Badlands Media. You can also check out Jessica on episode 10 of America First Stories. We absolutely love Jessica. We love All Good. Got the face balm right here. All Good. I could put it on during the show. You have the face balm yet?
I don't. I'm jealous right now. I'm feeling a little bit like Josh with the cacao.
You can't talk about it then. You can't talk about it. No,
I have the other stuff. I have some other stuff.
Sunburn, man. It's good for the sunburn because you gotta, if you Florida secret, and you probably know this up in California too, but Florida, we don't need to put on like lotions and all that stuff. We don't need all that stuff because it's kind of humid. I don't as a guy. Women still do because they're women and that's what they do. But I'll tell you what, man, when you have a sunburn, lotion, you gotta lotion it right away and it'll stop the peeling because it'll dry. Like you guys, I know all the states like outside of Florida, we got wintertime, we'll put some on. My skin will start getting a little whatever and you got to put some lotion on. But when I was out for Ash's trial, I was like, holy crap, now I know why you guys like have to lather everything up because like this air is so freaking dry that like my lips are chapped, my nose is like all crusty, my eyes are crusty. Like I'm like, this is miserable. Why would you guys? I want the humidity.
No, hell nah. Now you just crazy, bro. You just crazy.
Shut up. You're moving to Florida. Shut up.
I probably am. I probably am.
Yes, let's do it. Move to Florida. All right, let's talk about our next sponsor here as well. Guys, quick question. How much control do you have over your money right now? Technology has changed everything, and now it's changing how money works. Crypto started as a niche, but now it's going mainstream. Faster payments, more control, fewer middlemen. It's not just hype, it's just where things are going. And getting started today is easier than you think. With Rumble Wallet, you can buy Bitcoin, you can hold dollar-backed stablecoins, you can even own digital gold backed by real gold, all in one place. It's a non-custodial crypto wallet, which means you, not a bank or a platform, control access to your funds. Setup is simple. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your debit, credit, or debit card or credit card or your bank account and be up and running in just minutes. And for a limited time, you can start your wallet with $10 in US stable coins by downloading the Rumble Wallet and entering our exclusive promo code. Exclusive for daily listeners, guys. Enter promo code DAILY10 when you sign up. You can even use your Rumble Wallet to support your favorite creators like us directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description or just type in wallet.rumble.com/daily. That's wallet.rumble.com/daily. Download the wallet, and from there, when you set up your wallet, enter daily10 to get your free $10 in stablecoin. It's a limited time offer, so act now. Take control of your money and get started with Rumble Wallet today. All right. It's going to be fun when you move to Florida, man. We're going to have a good time.
We are.
You know,
I
there's
look
no
forward
way.
to it.
Although I do think there's going to be a surprise, and Bashara is going to have to drop out of the race. I think that's going to happen.
Listen, you know, I already have 3 states in mind.
What? No, you're moving to Florida, bro.
It's you know, it's not just my decision, but I do have 3 states in mind, and definitely Florida is one of those states. However, if this election we take back the governorship in California, then I am going to stay here. So
no state income tax.
Wait till California has that.
What?
Wait till California has that.
No state income tax. No property tax is coming up. It's not here yet, but I can get you no property tax. I can get that for you. I'll hook you up.
You can do personal exemption for your kids in school.
Yeah,
that's the main. That's the main reason. Aside from
also, Florida's on a real estate bubble. It's going to topple here in the next probably 6 months, and you'll be able to get home.
You're going to see that in a lot of the popular states.
Yeah. I agree.
No, listen, the Florida is it's made the final 3 for a reason.
I'm kicking myself for not selling my house like a year or 2 years ago when I said that I want to sell my home, buy an RV, and travel the country and get a Starlink and do my shows from the RV and just travel the country, because I would have had a boatload of money. And I was like, how long will I have to wait though before this bubble pops? And you know, whatever. I'm dialed in at 2.25, I think, mortgage, or 2.25, I think. So like, I'm not changing. I'm not doing anything until those rates come down. But anyways. All right.
The Orchid Lady says Missouri is a good state, and Arkansas too. I'm not moving to any state where the way you pronounce the state is a controversy. It's Missouri, it's Nevada, it's Nevada. And the other thing too is any state that I choose has to be a state that touches ocean. Just to put that out there so everybody knows.
We've got more ocean coastline than any state in the United States here in Florida.
Pretty crazy, right?
It is. A lot of people don't know that. We have more coastline than any state in the country. All the way around, surrounded by water.
Not surrounded.
Except for the north. Except for
3/4.
Except for the north. Yeah. Way more than 3/4. Way more than 3/4.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, bro. The only part that's not is where it's touching Alabama, Georgia, and Louisiana.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty long line there.
Dude, it's just one line across the top, and then it goes all.
Let's see. Go to the devil's Google. What percentage?
How much of Florida's border is coast is ocean?
Yeah, what percentage? What percentage of Florida's coast is ocean?
What percentage? Here we go.
Start dropping your guesses in the chat. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with
not
75%.
coastline. What of Florida's? I put coastline. That's not fair because that's all of it. What percentage of Florida's border? There's no way. It says 48.5% of Florida's total border is border length is
Told you
coastline.
that
No,
northern
there's no
border is
way.
long, bro.
Way more than 48%. There's no possible way.
I told you. That Georgia is a great state there, Artsy Joan. Georgia's a great state.
Florida's total border perimeter is 2,300 miles, and total coastline length is 1,100 miles. That's not even close to true.
I told you that northern border, bro. It's long.
There's got to be some sort of a hiccup in the way that's asked.
You guys are witnessing real time denial. Is what you guys are recognizing right here.
Oh, somebody mentioned Alaska, by the way. I should have qualified that with continental United States. I should have qualified that because yes, Alaska has way more coastline than anybody because it's bigger than a third of the United States.
Yeah, the thing is huge.
Okay, let's get into this clip here. So we did get a little treat out of the hearing, and is Bill Gates next?
On my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
How much should Bill Gates entities provide funding to NIAID collectively since 2005?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
To your knowledge, did Bill Gates partner with China on sensitive research?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Specifically, dual-use research such as countermeasures or gain of function?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Do you know if Bill Gates entities partnered with U.S. government classified programs?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Do you know if Bill Gates maintains an active national security clearance?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Did you advocate or request for Bill Gates to receive a security clearance?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Do you have any knowledge that NIAID or NIH through HHS sponsored or requested a security clearance for Bill Gates?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based.
Okay, so that was kind of laying it out there.
Definitely some signaling.
What could be next? What could be next?
Who's next?
Yeah, if you're wondering who's next, that might be indicative right there. The interesting thing is that wasn't what everybody latched onto. Everybody latched on to this.
Bill Gates was given Q security clearance from 2014 to 2021 without objection. That will be entered into the record. I'd also ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the contents of the folder of authorities provided to Dr. Fauci, including the pardon.
Okay, so everybody latched on to Bill Gates getting Q clearance.
Yeah, it was, and mention of the red folder that was early on too.
Was it a red folder or was it just a folder?
No, early on they said red folder. I forgot. It might have been Rand Paul too that said it. I have the clip of it, but both the red folder and the Q clearance that everybody
because he mentions a folder here.
The contents.
No, this was in the beginning
of authorities.
The folder of authorities. Okay. Here's the thing though: is the Q clearance being given to civilians is not at all uncommon. And Bill Gates, as much as we dislike him, is I think what's the board that he's on? I think it's like Terra Power or something. He's on a board that's building advanced nuclear reactors with DOE, and Q clearance is a DOE clearance. So like people were like freaking out, like, why does Bill Gates have a Q clearance? A lot of people have, clearances through DOE. Okay. I'm not going to speculate, but there's people that have probably been on shows that me and Alpha have done that have that level. So it wasn't that wasn't something to focus on, but that those questions there, that's signal. That is signal. And that's all I've got on the Fauci. So an hour and 40 minutes in, and we're finally done with the Fauci, but we did go off on a lot of tangents today.
I enjoyed the conversation though.
So did I. There's a lot of conversation outside of that. All right, so let's jump into this. From the Associated Press, Senate panel delays vote on Blanche Attorney General nomination as key Republicans withhold support. John Cornyn and Tom Tillis, they're the ones. The Senate Judiciary Committee had been expected to vote today on whether to advance Blanche's nomination to the full chamber, but resistance from 2 Republican senators on the committee threw the confirmation into doubt. At the center of the fight is Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS. It included a deal to drop tax claims against the president and a now scrapped plan to create the $1776 billion anti-weaponization fund, 1.776, not 1,700, not 1.7 trillion. The department no longer is moving forward with the anti-weaponization fund, but officials have said the audit immunity agreement still remains in place. Cornyn said he wants the administration to modify that piece of the settlement to make clear that it covers only existing audits and does not protect the president from examination of future tax filings. Since when is this like a negotiating thing? Does Congress have, like, does the Constitution, under the advise and consent clause, does the Constitution say anything about you can negotiate with the president to get your will across the line in order to give your advice and consent? Or are you supposed to only advise and consent based on the merits of the person presented before you? Like, this is bullshit, man. Like, this is absolute bullshit.
I like when you're fired up. I like when you're fired up.
It pisses me off, man. We just watched a guy. I made this comparison yesterday. We just watched a guy testify, Fauci, that, and I made this point yesterday, was preemptively pardoned by the last administration. By the way, the Senate had no problem confirming all of their nominees, including Merrick Garland for Attorney General. No problem whatsoever. And we just watched that administration preemptively pardon not just Fauci, but a lot of their colleagues in Congress preemptively, meaning, and this is the comparison I made yesterday, Fauci can literally go out right now and say, in 2019, I took a bus full of people, brought them to my house, put them all in the kneeling position, and executed every single one of them point blank with a .357 revolver, and there's jack shit you can do about it. Because he's preemptively pardoned, meaning no idea. But President Trump, who had his tax returns leaked, like, against the law, right? Like, his privacy invalidated. They're all about personal identifying information. We're seeing that all over the place. He had his tax information leaked after Hillary Clinton, by the way, called for China to find it and leak it and say that they'll be rewarded in the media. And what did Natalie Winters just put out? 50 plus journalists that have been taking trips to China. And I wonder if there's going to be any correlation there with the leak of President Trump's tax returns. But anyways, this is so fucking absurd. And it's clear as day that this is just retaliation. John Cornyn, he did his press conference with Manu Rajaj, the guy from CNN, standing in front of his sign. Well, we're gonna push back. You might want to get in there and pack your fucking office, dude, because you're out. You're out. You're out. So shut up, do your job, and get out. I'm so pissed, man. Go ahead.
Listen. You have all these arguments about how powerful pardons are until people talk about Trump pardoning Tina Peters, and then all of a sudden pardons are limited.
Yeah. All right. President Trump did have this to say about Cornyn yesterday.
All I can say is Todd Blanche is outstanding. And I thought it was pretty routine because he's so good. He just wouldn't find a better person. So I don't know, maybe John Cornyn's upset with me because I didn't endorse him. I don't know what it is, but I haven't heard that there's a problem. I heard he's going through quite nicely. All I can say is Todd Blanche is outstanding.
All right. So you know how you get Todd Blanche across the finish line, Alpha?
Tell me.
Nominate DNI Pulte to be acting attorney general, and they'll rush Blanche right through lickety split. I put that out on X this morning. I'm like, if you want to get Blanche across, just nominate Bill Pulte to be acting attorney general, and they will rush Todd Blanche through.
They will shit themselves.
How funny would that be?
Mercy, Mercy, we'll give you Blanche. We'll give you Blanche.
Yeah, watch now that would be an ultimate boop right there if President Trump were to come out.
Bro, that would be a legendary.
That would be the ultimate boop right there. If you see him say, well, maybe I'll just send Bill Pulte over to the DOJ if they don't want to get him through.
I'll bring back Sessions. That would be a controversy.
Yeah, that's another way it could go is you threaten to bring back somebody else. Although I don't know that Sessions would necessarily scare them that much. Maybe. The last thing, well, we'll talk about this real quick, just because I thought this was fantastic. James O'Keefe has another, one of these exposés. This one's up in New York City. And the reason I'm focusing on, or I'm talking about this here is because I learned something new that I did not know. Alpha, are you aware that EBT is not just for food stamps?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're aware of the EBT TANF?
TANF or whatever it is.
Yeah, TANF.
Yeah, I think now you can even. I think you can withdraw a little bit of money if I remember correctly, and you can buy, I think, liquor now.
You can buy anything. You can withdraw. You can go to an ATM, put your EBT card in the ATM. Now, it's not for EBT food. This is only EBT TANF, which is, it's temporary, guys. It's temporary. And by temporary, I mean 5 years. 5 years. If you're in, hold on, I did the research on it. I was going through this morning.
It's all combined into one card.
Yeah, exactly. The TANF averages around $500 per month for a family of 3. California, you get a family of 3 gets $925 up to $925 per month, and they get $1,100 for a family of 4, $1,175. New York, $789. Texas, only $382. Florida, $300 to $400. No wonder these states are all freaking blue, quote unquote blue, because they give all the money to the people to come in there and vote for this. Come in there and vote for the Democrats, and they'll give you $1,000 a month in EBT. So, yeah, James O'Keefe goes on this expose, and I don't have it queued up anymore, so I'm not going to play it. But he goes in there and starts buying like kratom, which is like basically it's an alternative to weed. It's another type of plant that has like psychedelic effects and all that stuff. And he's going in there and buying kratom with the EBT cash card, swiping it. They're taking it. Not supposed to, but they're taking it. It's one thing to go and pull it out of the ATM and then go and buy it cash, but he's in there swiping the EBT card and buying it. Then he even gets another place. As he goes on, he finds another place that swipes the card, the EBT food card, charges the kratom as food, caught on camera doing this, goes back in there and is like, hey, you sold this guy kratom on an EBT food card and you labeled it as food. No, I didn't. Yeah, you did. I have the receipt. Okay, show me the receipt. Shows him the receipt. That's not our address. Oh, so then they're spoofing. This bodega in New York is spoofing their merchant terminal to a whole nother address. He goes over to confirm with the address. Hey, do you know they're spoofing your terminal? And the company's like, we don't care. That's not us. We don't care. Like the amount of corruption with the EBT, bro.
Sounds like that other company's getting a kickback.
Dude, probably. But they're spoofing it so that it doesn't come back to them. And the other company, the other place, the original place can be like, I don't know what's going on here. But holy shit. So cloning, merchant accounts and all that stuff. Dude, and James O'Keefe gets on the phone with EBT. That's actually something that we should probably play. Let me see if I could get pulled up to that part. Where he's on the phone with them, because that is actually pretty infuriating.
Well, the part that's infuriating is because since there's so much fraud in the temporary assistance, it's that dollar amount should be higher for families that need the actual assistance, but it's not because so much fraud's allowed to be in there. because for those of you that don't know, I worked for social services for about 3 years as a medical eligibility technician. But you work with, I remember it's TNAF or whatever, and you work with all of them, so you understand the operations of how it works, and we share case files and all that. I'll tell you what, when you read off those numbers right now, those are not very much different than when I worked there 20 plus years ago.
So here's the thing. Those numbers don't go up. So this is something I found out. So you only get, the TANF program has $16.5 billion that's allocated to it.
Well, see, and this is the crazy part, because obviously there's been inflation since I was a young buck that worked there. So what I'm seeing here is, because I'll tell you what, there are legitimate people in these programs that legitimately need the help. Now these people are getting hosed because that amount should have increased over the years from when people come in there, because of how much things have increased in price. But because we know money laundering and fraud and all that's taking place, they're not. So people that righteously need help are not getting the full benefit of that help because of all the things I already mentioned. That's sad.
So it hasn't increased since 1996. It says the core federal allocation is fixed at $16.5 billion per year for all 50 states, DC, Columbia, and territories. The amount has not increased since 1996. States are required to spend their own funds to maintain the pre-1996 spending levels. In fiscal year 2024, combined federal and state spending totaled $37.5 billion, meaning that states contributed roughly $21 billion in matching funds. So again, you know what that does, Alpha, is that incentivizes people to move to blue states that are going to charge state income taxes, for their people. I mean, this is how you destroy states. This isn't.
I don't disagree with you.
I know. This is how you create a welfare state. This is how you create welfare, not a welfare state, but welfare states, right? Hey, move to Minnesota. They have a state income tax, but guess what? You're poor. You're not going to pay it. Other people are going to pay it, and they're going to pay you more money than if you go to Florida. Texas is only going to pay you $400 a month. Minnesota will pay you $900. Which one are you going to go to? You're going to go to Minnesota if you're in the poor class. Now, if you're in Minnesota and you're like, hey, I'm paying a state income tax here in Minnesota, and all of it's going to usher in, poor people to come here and basically suck off the teat of the government, I'm going to go to Texas. It is literally how you realign these states and move this country around.
Here's what I'll say. And tired of this shit. This is not to pick on you, because I would say a lot of people have this mentality. It's not help. It's a way of life for the whole corrupted program. This is what I'll say. There are people that have learned to manipulate that system to make that statement absolutely true. Tired of this shit. Like I won't argue with you on that. But what I will say is, from having been a caseworker, there are people out there that have worked and busted their asses just like all of us, and something happens in their life where they need that kind of assistance. They need that kind of help, and they're not there to manipulate it. And the sad part is, when I was a caseworker and I would get these people that are trying to exit out of the program because they understand that I hit a rut in life. I came here for help, and now I want my way out. And they'd get a second job, and they come in. I might have shared this before I know I've shared on my show. I don't know if I've ever shared it on Badlands, but I remember I have this one guy that comes in, and he provides me the new income for his family, and I plug those numbers into the computer, and it populates to see what program he's going to get into. And all of a sudden, they lost all kinds of benefits that he needed, like dramatically, right? And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, well, because your income's too high. And by high, it was not even remotely close to being high as what we would consider it, but for the program. And he goes, but I'm trying to get out. Like, I still need help. This is not enough. And he was right. But the system was designed to make him want to quit that second job in order to maintain the other benefits.
Right.
So what it does is it tries to handcuff people to stay there. Why? Because of what you just said. Then it becomes I need this to survive now, because it's become a way of life instead of temporary. and these are the people I need to vote for because these are the people that have, made these promises to these things. But it's a system that's needed, but it's a system that's needed where the rules and investigations are actually looked into.
There is a program in the VA, and that program will pay you as a veteran. It'll pay you a certain amount of money as long as you don't make a certain amount of money. And the amount of money that you can make is less than half of what they'll pay you. And so you have no incentive to work. You have no incentive to go out and work unless you're guaranteed to make more than the government is willing to give you. Now,
check this out, just to piss you off more. I had a conversation with, this was somebody very close to me, right? I'll say friend or family. This was back when I was a cop. And I was pissed. And that's why I'm tired of this shit with the comment, because it's a shared mentality. Trust me, I'm there with you. And I was having this argument with this family member or friend, and saying, I was pissed because we get taxed like crazy, right? And they were like, "Why should I go and work when I'm making what you make and I don't have to work?" And what she essentially was saying is, between the housing allowance, the food stamps, the money that was coming in, we were generating pretty much the same net income. But I was the one working, missing birthdays and all that stuff. I was pissed. And that's why when Tired put that out there, I understand, because I am there with you. But we also can't forget that there are parts of our society that have worked their entire life. And when something bad in their life happens, we also need to be there to help those people recover, not to support their entire way of life, but to help them recover.
Yeah. I will help. I will be more inclined to donate to, or, again, I like G Money's idea. GoFundMe, bro. You want these social programs? GoFundMe, bro. I'm all for that. And I would donate to them. I would donate. I'm the guy that, I'll see somebody on social media or whatever. I'm the guy that'll be like, hey, I've got, I can spare $20, I can spare $50 and throw it. But I'm all for that. But I'm all for that well before we're giving money to any country outside of our own borders.
100%.
And
hell yeah.
And yeah. So again, like, I'm with you. There are people that genuinely need these programs. They need that leg up. They need that something to help them. The problem is that there's no checks and balances in place to allow this, and the government has no accountability for it because it's not their fucking money, and they don't care. As long as it's not their money, they don't care.
Well, it's that mentality. The more we spend, then the more grants we get to apply for.
Exactly. The more we spend, the more we get, and you can never have a system that is like that. And again, that's one of the reasons why, just looking at that TANF, 30 years, they haven't increased that money. Do you know how much money $16.5 billion was in 1996 compared to now? Look that up real quick. How much was $16 billion in 1996 compared to today? I'll bet you it's close to 40 billion. Based on context, 16 billion. What? Hold on. I spelled the word wrong. 33 billion. 33 billion today. So inflation has doubled it 100% in 30 years.
I think if we ever had a single tax, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
Say that again.
A VAT tax, value added tax. You only pay tax on what you consume, what you buy, and certain things.
I'd be okay with a flat tax, a flat like 1% or 2%. With this context to it, that there's 4 options, so that when you file your income for this flat tax, the 4 options read, and again, this is when we've already proven that we've eradicated fraud, right? As long as fraud exists, I don't think we should pay any tax. So this is under the utopia thought of everything is finally like not corrupt. Social services would be option 1, infrastructure would be option 2, military would be option 3, and then 4 would be split. And I think you, the taxpayer, gets to decide where your taxes go. Maybe you're somebody that wants it to all go into social service programs, so you select that option. Maybe you're someone like me that's authoritarians, like we just want to conquer the world, so you put it all into the military. Or maybe you're someone that's balanced that says, hey, split it amongst all. But I think we should have a say in where it goes every single year. And I think what we would see is, again, this is under the utopia mindset that there's no more corruption, right? We would see that people would start picking options that are in line with probably what's going on at the time. You know, if the economy's hard, people are probably going to be pushing social services. You know, if roads are not good, people are going to be like, hey, the economy's doing good. We're not at war with anybody. I want it all to go into infrastructure. I think that would be kind of cool, but that makes sense. It's common sense. That means it would never happen.
I am not okay with paying taxes. I don't think we were ever meant to pay tax to the federal government. I'm okay with state taxes. I'm okay with paying taxes to a state, to our state. The state can pay, taxes to the federal government if they want.
See, but then it's the state deciding. I want to decide.
No. Well, I mean, the state can decide that it wants to, because it's the federal government is supposed to be for the general good of the nation. And, very explicit things that the federal government is supposed to do, none of which they're doing right now. They've gone way, way, way beyond the scope of what they were intended to do.
Agree.
And what they are intended to do can be funded through tariffs, through outside entities outside of our borders that want to do business inside of our borders. And for that, you have to go through pay the tariff.
I'm good with that too.
Federal government. And so that's where I'm at. Like, I don't think we should have federal income taxes. As far as state, I want the value added tax. You buy something, you pay a tax on it. Other than that, fuck off. Right?
I'm okay with that. I won't argue that.
Telling me that I have to pay a tax.
we make tariffs permanent, and I will 100% subscribe to that.
Okay, I'm with you. All right, we did run out of time because that's what we do. Me and Alpha, that's what we do. We run out of time. Let's go ahead and hit these rants real quick here. EC with the early raid. Thank you so much. ACCCR1, if we can get justice through our corrupt judicial system, is it possible to extradite Fauci to another country such as Turkey, which had over 100,000 COVID deaths? If we can't, I think you meant to say if we can't get justice, is it possible to extradite him? I mean, that's interesting. I don't know a case they would make outside the United States, but I'm sure we could. I don't even know how that would work.
Yeah, I don't. I would have to look into that one. I don't know.
That would be a really bad precedent, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I'm not a fan of that idea. Like sending a U.S. citizen to another country I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
Even if it's the worst of the worst, because once you do it for Fauci, then you can do it for anybody. And unless they specifically went over there and tried to overthrow a government or something like that, I no, sorry, disagreeing on that one. Monty 710, Fauci's protocol for COVID was the ventilator and remdesivir, which killed many people, including my brother, and no one was allowed to talk to him. I am so sorry, Monty. Never forget what these people did to us.
Yeah, same thing with my uncle Monty. I feel you on that one, man.
I said the other day on Tuesday when I was on the show solo, my grandpa and my uncle. My uncle died right at the beginning of COVID, and my grandpa about 2 years into it, a year and a half into it, and he was terrified. He was
The
terrified.
hardest part about that, and I don't know if Monty or you can or in this position, was that I had the information for the alternative, but they wouldn't listen.
They wouldn't listen to us. Nope. And the reason is because I have a very liberal retarded family member, and I love him to death, that lived across the street from him and was over there every day brainwashing him about this thing. And I would go over there, and one of the guys I'm closest with in my entire life was my grandpa, and he would be like, "No, get away. You're unclean." I mean, he went and got vaccinated, and I'm like, "Why are you getting vaccinated? You're more likely to die from the vaccine at your age." I mean, he was in his 90s at this point. He was 91. It's crazy. Huck Fillery, a Huck Buck is headed your way. Fauci was bad. He makes me mad. Satu away from ventilators and run death is near. sat you away from ventilators, and run death is near. All right, let's try that again because Huckbuck is trying to be funny. A Huckbuck is headed your way. Fauci was bad. He makes me mad. Sat you away from ventilators, and run death is near. All right. Huck, we love you, man.
You did good with that one.
We love you. We love you. I'll just leave that at that. Smash that thumbs up if you have not done so. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We got sit rep tonight. I'm pretty sure we're doing sit rep tonight. We're good. We're good for tonight. I know you had some family, not issues. I don't want to say issues because then everybody gets.
I don't mind sharing with the audience.
Okay,
If you guys don't know, my son is heading off to college. And so I have this week and then next week are my last weeks with them. So I'll be taking those times off as sit rep just because I'm going to miss my boy. But this week he's with his mom, so we're good on sit rep. So I love sit rep, you guys, and I love you guys, but this is my only son. Like, this is my only boy. And here's the part that's been hard. I know we're on the way out. It's just his senior year and it's his life. It's his story. And all his friends are all going out to different colleges. Some are going to the military. So they're all trying to get as much time with each other as he can. And, I'm just dad. So he does accommodate me when I want to snatch him away, but I'm also not wanting him to miss out on his story. So when I do have a chance to grab him and do some stuff, we will. So keep my son in prayers, folks, as he heads off to college this coming month.
So there you go. I didn't want to say it, but yeah. So we will see you tonight, and maybe not next week, as Alpha says goodbye and then moves his ass down to Florida. So there we go. That as well. Smash that thumb if you have not done so already, and we will see you guys later.